I bought that mountain land for peace, and somehow ended up in a property war with a woman who thought an HOA newsletter was stronger than a deed. You ever meet somebody so confident, so polished, so absurdly sure of themselves, you just know trouble is about to park outside your gate? That was Karen. I wasn't looking for neighbors, rules, or community spirit. After years in the fire service, and one bad night that left my body half broken and my nerves wired wrong, I wanted distance. Real distance. So I bought 200 acres in the Colorado mountains, old logging roads, a dead sawmill, pine trees, cold air, and finally, silence. I rebuilt the place myself. Solar power, backup diesel, my own water, cameras, sensors, and one heavy steel gate at the front of my private road. Every record I had said the same thing. Private land, private road. No easement. No HOA authority. No shared access. Clean and simple. Then one Tuesday morning, a white Range Rover rolled up. Out stepped Karen Maddox, president of the HOA on the ridge next to mine, dressed like she was starring in a luxury hiking catalog nobody asked for. She pressed the intercom and, in the sweetest voice you can imagine, informed me that my access road had been designated as part of a future public corridor. Emergency access, bike path, pedestrian use. The whole fantasy. Then she told me I'd need to remove my gate. I honestly laughed when I told her she had no authority over my land. She smiled that tight little smile people use when they spent their whole life mistaking arrogance for competence. She said the county would review their master plan, and once adopted, I'd have to comply. I read the survey language right back to her. Private road, no encumbrances, no easements, no HOA jurisdiction. She went quiet for a second, then said she'd escalate. That was the moment I knew this wasn't confusion. It was a land grab and a cardigan. A few days later, I got the certified letter. Formal demand, glossy language, fake concern for the community. Attached was a petition calling for a nature access corridor, signed by smiling neighbors who wanted trails, safety, and togetherness. Real heartwarming stuff. Until I looked at the map. Their pretty little corridor ran straight through my road, my lower parcel, and right across land they did not own. Then things got uglier. One of my lower cameras went dark. I checked the line. Somebody had cut it. When I inspected the gate, I found a fresh override device wired into the system. Somebody had come onto my property, tampered with my gate, and tried to create their own way in. Lucky for them, I'm stubborn. Unlucky for them, I'm thorough. I had backup cameras off-grid and offline, so I pulled the footage. There they were, 2 men and a woman in HOA vests on my property after midnight, cutting into the control box and installing their little gadget like they were doing utility work. Not long after, another SUV rolled through my gate and drove onto my land for a nice private tour. I handed everything to the sheriff. Video, plates, timestamps, all of it. Karen didn't back off. She leaned in harder. The HOA started posting cheerful updates about trail integration and community access. Then I found out why. The property next to my northern line, a useless sliver of land, all brush and rock, came up for sale. I bought it quietly through a holding company. Not in my name. Clean, anonymous. A week later, the HOA sent that holding company a welcome packet, an invite to their board meeting, and a rule book thick enough to stop a bullet. So I played along. I signed up under the company name, joined their online forum, and sat through their HOA nonsense, mailbox complaints, string light debates, people arguing like the Republic depended on wind chimes. But buried under all that suburban theater was gold. Budget notes, planning files, internal documents, and tucked inside one infrastructure proposal was a real plan, a new access road cutting straight through my land. Their sweet little public corridor was just a soft version. The actual goal was to push a right-of-way across my property, so a few board members could develop luxury home sites farther up the ridge. One of those proposed lots had Karen's initials on it. That was when this stopped being annoying and became personal. I went to the next board meeting dressed like any other tired mountain landowner and sat quiet until Karen started talking about fire corridor integration. She never said my name, but she didn't have to. Then I stood up and passed around copies of their own documents. Maps, invoices, survey work paid for with HOA funds, all dated before their public petition ever launched. Then I asked one question. I said, Karen, can you explain why HOA money was spent surveying land the HOA doesn't own 6 weeks before you asked the community to support public trail? The room went dead. She froze. Somebody gasped. Another board member suddenly looked very interested in the floor. I didn't need to argue. Their paperwork did it for me. By the next day, their online portal was half shut down, message boards locked, posts deleted. Karen was scrambling, but I still hadn't shown my best cards. I had the trespassing footage, the gate tampering, the maps, the budget trail, and now a direct link between the fake community plan and a private development scheme. So I stopped being quiet. I made a video. Nothing fancy, tripod, coffee mug, me standing by my gate with maps and screenshots. I laid it all out. How an HOA was using public language and fake goodwill to carve a private road to my land so board members could build expensive homes with the benefit of taxpayer-friendly access. I figured maybe a few locals would see it. By the next morning, tens of thousands had. A local reporter called. Then another. By the end of the week, Karen's little mountain power game was on the evening news. She went silent in public. But behind the scenes, the pressure got worse. That's when Brian Lutz, the HOA vice president and Karen's right hand, showed up at my gate looking like he hadn't slept in days. He told me Karen had pushed the whole thing. The board was told the county was already favorable. The survey work had been disguised. The community trail was a cover story. And once the attention hit, people on the board started panicking. Brian brought emails, drafts, internal notes, enough to prove this wasn't some misunderstanding. It was organized. He wasn't there to save me. He was there to save himself. Fine by me. Truth is truth, no matter how sweaty the messenger is. Now, the best part came a few nights later. I left the illegal override setup looking active, but rewired it to trigger an old service road instead of my real access line. Then I waited. Around 3 a.m, the same little HOA midnight crew came back, used a fake panel, and drove in thinking they'd beaten me. They hadn't. Floodlights blasted on. Cameras caught every face, every plate, every panic shout. And that old service road? It crossed weak ground from the mill days. I knew it. They didn't. One SUV dropped a wheel into a sinkhole and wrecked its suspension. Another tried to reverse and clipped a log. Suddenly, the people who'd been sneaking around my property in reflective vests were stranded in the dark, yelling at each other like raccoons in business casual. I called the sheriff while they were still stuck. After that, the whole thing cracked open fast. Investigators dug into the HOA finances. More landowners came forward. Survey fraud, misuse of nonprofit funds, attempted easement fraud, records tampering. It all started spilling out. Karen tried to act like she was a victim of misinformation, but once paper trails and footage line up, the performance is over. By the time the case hit court, the room was packed. Reporters, locals, people who'd spent years being bullied by smiling little committees, and finally got to watch one of them burn in daylight. Karen sat there stiff as concrete, behind big sunglasses, while the charges were read. Count after count. Trespass, fraud, conspiracy, abuse of authority, misrepresentation. The whole rotten stack. She lost. The HOA was ordered dissolved. Its assets were divided in settlement. Fraudulent plans were voided. The trail proposal died. The luxury development died with it. And my gate stayed exactly where it had always been, shut, solid, and mine. That should have been enough. But the quiet ending turned out to be the better one. A few former HOA members came back later, not as board people, not as busybodies, just as neighbors, real ones, the kind who learn something. With help from a few local vets, I turned an old structure on my land into a retreat for disabled first responders. Quiet, private, useful. No duas, no committees, no one pretending power and virtue are the same thing. And that, I think, was the lesson under all of it. Some people see land and think ownership is just paperwork they can outmaneuver. Some people see silence and think it means weakness. But sometimes the quiet guy behind the gate isn't hiding. Sometimes he's watching, keeping records, and waiting for fools to hand him the rope. The last time I drove past a ridge, the fancy signs were gone. Karen was gone. And the only thing left of her grand vision was mud, weeds, and a caution notice where the road work never happened. I won't lie. That felt good. Real good. So tell me, when power hides behind words like community and safety, how far is too far before fighting back becomes the only honest option? And if you've ever dealt with a bully in a suit, a board, or a title they didn't deserve, tell me, did karma find them, or did you ever open the gate and let it in?